Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to your AEW Dynamite post-show, man. And obviously, a lot of things happened last night on the AEW Dynamite episode. Obviously, this was the first Dynamite episode of the new year, and there is a lot to talk about with AEW Dynamite, especially with what happened last night. But we start out the night in a Continental Classic or Continental Title Eliminator matchup, where it is Jon Moxley taking on Shelton Benjamin. I honestly thought this was a good match, a good way to start AEW Dynamite last night. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Moxley and Shelton Benjamin. Moxley and Benjamin both exchanged in the middle of the ring, with Shelton hitting a release German suplex on Jon Moxley in the middle of the ring. Shelton was keeping the pace of the match, with Shelton hitting multiple German suplexes on Moxley in the middle of the ring, followed by Moxley getting up, trying to get some offense in, by quickly hitting a cutter on Shelton Benjamin for a near fall. Shelton gets up, hits a powerbomb on Moxley for a near fall, followed by a flatliner on Moxley for a near fall. Shelton then hits a super kick for a near fall on Jon Moxley, but Shelton then hits a jumping knee on Moxley. Moxley gets up, hits a paradigm shift on Shelton Benjamin for a near fall. Benjamin then hits a running knee on Moxley for a near fall. Shelton then applies a triangle choke on Moxley in the middle of the ring. Moxley then ends up hitting a roll-up on Shelton Benjamin with 5 seconds left. Pins for the 3. And your winner of the match is Jon Moxley. Hats off to Jon Moxley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a 6-man tag team matchup. Now, there were some situations that happened that led to this matchup. And what I mean by that is, originally scheduled for this match was supposed to be The Demand, Ricochet, and the Gates of Agony, taking on Jack Perry and Jet Speed. But it seems like early in the night, before AEW Dynamite went on the air, somebody attacked Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight, so Jack Perry had to find 2 tag team partners to team up with him to take on The Demand, and those tag team partners are none other than the Young Bucks. Now, the Young Bucks did not come out to their original EVP music. They didn't come out as the, Matt and Nick Jackson that we've seen for the, for past 2.5 years. What we got last night was the original OG Young Bucks. When they came out with their old school gear, they came out to the super kick party. The crowd erupted for that. A little nostalgia from the Young Bucks. But the match itself between Perry and the Bucks versus The Demand was a good match, man. It was a back and forth matchup between both teams, with Jack Perry and the Bucks keeping the pace of the match. Perry hits a spear on Ricochet in the middle of the ring, followed by Matt Jackson hitting a blockbuster off the apron to the outside. Perry then hits a moonsault to the outside as well. Toa then hits a Samoan drop on Jack Perry and the Young Bucks. Ricochet then gets involved in the match by hitting a springboard 450 for a near fall, followed by a vertigo for a near fall. Perry then hits a poison rana in the middle of the ring, followed by the Young Bucks hitting multiple super kicks on The Demand. Perry then hits a Doomsday Device in the middle of the ring, followed by the Bucks and Perry hitting a BTE trigger in the middle of the ring. Perry ultimately hits the finish, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Jack Perry and the Young Bucks. After the match, you can see Mark Davis and Jack Doyle attack Perry and the Young Bucks. Now, if you guys are confused on who Jack Doyle is, Jack Doyle used to be formerly known as Jake something in TNA. It looks like he has signed a AEW contract. The Jet Speed are here. They're all bandaged up. They're trying to save Jack Perry and the Young Bucks, but all of a sudden the lights go out. The lights come back on, and it's none other than Andrade. Andrade makes his second return back to AEW. He ends up attacking Jet Speed, pretty much sending a message to Jet Speed as well as Jack Perry and the Young Bucks. Moving on from that, we got Willow Nightingale. She has her TBS title celebration. She comes out to the ring with Harley Cameron and Chris Statlander. Looks like that relationship has reunited. Willow talks about being the TBS champion in the face of TBS. Willow also talks about being reunited with Statlander, which I mentioned a minute ago. Willow says that she wants the competition, that she wants the smoke. Willow then calls out Mercedes Moné. Moné walks down to the ring in all white. Moné gets in the ring and she seems upset. She is crying in the middle of the ring. Moné then gets pissed off. She ends up destroying Willow's celebration, all the tables and all the cakes, if you will. She tries to attack Willow, but ends up falling into a birthday cake, or a cake for that matter. Willow then hits a powerbomb on Moné right on top of the cake. Looks like Moné has some unfinished business with Willow Nightingale. And moving on from that, we got Sammy Guevara taking on Bandito. I thought this was actually a really good matchup. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Guevara and Bandito. with Bandito keeping the pace of the match. Guevara hits a shooting star press to the outside, taking out Bandito. Bandito then goes for a 21-plex on Guevara, but Guevara counters it with a springboard cutter for a near fall. Guevara then follows it up by hitting a running knee on Bandito, but Bandito somehow gets up, hits a 21-plex on Sammy Guevara, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Bandito. But after the match, Bandito was quickly interrupted by MJF. MJF walks out to the ring with a translator. MJF talks about Lucha Libre. He also mocks Mystico, who's a big-time star over in CMLL. MJF says that he is a Lucha Libre legend. More of a legend than Bandito. MJF then mocks the crowd. MJF then says that Dynamite Ring doesn't belong to Bandito and it belongs to MJF. MJF says he wants his ring back and the match with Bandito canceled. After this, MJF then hits a low blow on Bandito. MJF then steals back the Dynamite Diamond Ring. MJF then accidentally hits the translator instead of Bandito. Bandito then capitalizes on this by attacking MJF. And Bandito ultimately hits a 21-plex on MJF and the translator in the middle of the ring. Some interesting stuff there between Bandito and MJF. Moving on from that, we have Marina Shafir taking on Toni Storm. I thought this was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Marina and Toni, with Marina keeping the pace of the match. Wheeler Yuta ends up pulling the referee out of the ring. Referee sounds for the bell, and the match ends in a disqualification, and Toni Storm gets the win. After the match, Marina then attacks Toni Storm, as well as Mina Shirakawa, who comes out to the ring. Roderick Strong and Orange Cassidy are here as well, trying to stop the madness from the Death Riders, and Claudio is here as well. Claudio looks like he's ready for a fight, but ends up backing off. Some interesting stuff there between the Death Riders and Toni Storm. And moving on from that, we go into our main event of AEW Dynamite. It is the Ops versus Adam Page and Swerve Strickland in a lights-out match. The match itself, it was a decent match. I really didn't like the lighting in this matchup, to be honest with you. It was kind of confusing. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Page and Swerve keeping the pace of the match. Page hits a moonsault to the outside, followed by Swerve hitting a Death Valley driver off the apron. Hook and Swerve both exchange, with Hook hitting an exploder suplex on the apron. Hook then hits another exploder on Page through a table. Page then hits Hook with staples, followed by Page hitting a powerbomb on Hook. Swerve then staples Hobbs. Hobbs then gets up, hits Page and Swerve with a chair shot. Hobbs then attacks Prince Nana. Swerve then hits Hobbs with a chair, followed by Hobbs getting up, throws Swerve down onto the center blocks. The Ops Dojo are here. They attack Hobbs, or not Hobbs. They attack Page and Swerve. Nana then throws coffee at Hobbs. Page and Swerve then attack the Ops Dojo, as well as Hook attacking Prince Nana, who was ringside. Page then goes for a buckshot lariat, but Hobbs counters it with a spine buster in the middle of the ring. Swerve then hits a house call, followed by Page hitting a deadeye and Swerve hitting a stomp on Hobbs onto the center blocks. Swerve hits a house call on Hook, followed by Page hitting a buckshot lariat. Page then chokes Hook with the chain. Referee sounds for the bell. And your winners of the match are Page and Swerve Strickland. Hats off to Page and Swerve for getting the win in this matchup. Couple of things I want to talk about with you guys, man, when it pertains to AEW Dynamite before I get the hell up out of here. Number one, this was the first Dynamite of the new year. I was expecting a lot going into the new year for AEW. I think AEW, man, and a lot of people, there's other content creators out there that are saying pretty much the same thing that I'm going to be saying right here when I say this. AEW, as far as the entire, picture of AEW, for the past 2.5 years, man, AEW has been on this slump. And it's going downhill quick. I mean, obviously AEW has vastly changed than what it was in the first 3 years of its existence. Things have gotten progressively worse for AEW, whether it's ticket sales, whether it's, merch sales, whether it's, TV ratings. Obviously, things for AEW has not been on the up and up for the past 2.5 years. It's been a slow burn for AEW. So I was expecting AEW to come out of the gate in the first Dynamite of the year with something special. Now, did we necessarily get that last night? No. We had the second return, or the second coming, if you will, of Andrade. And honestly, for what it's worth, man, they literally debuted him almost the same damn way they did the first time after he left WWE and came back to AEW. I mean, he literally showed up, the lights went out, lights came back on, Andrade standing in the middle of the ring. He ends up attacking Jack Perry and the Young Bucks and seemingly joining the Don Callis family. I'm going to be honest, man. The Don Callis family and the way things are starting to slowly pan out for the Don Callis family. Don Callis family are starting to look like basically an NWO 2.0. That's the way that I'm looking at it. With the likes of the talent they have on that stable, from Kyle Fletcher to Takeshita Okada, what's top three names right there? Andrade. They got El Clone. They got Lance Archer. They had Brian Cage. I think Rocky Romero, Trent Beretta. I could be missing a couple names. Mark Davis, and now the debut of Jack Doyle, or AKA Jake Something, who formerly used to wrestle in TNA. He's also now a part of this Don Callis stable. I'm going to be honest, man. Like I said, this is starting to look like an NWO 2.0. And am I completely against it? No. What I am against, though, is how is this really going to really play out with the Don Callis family moving forward? Is this something where it's going to be Don Callis family taking over AEW, kind of similar to what the Death Riders and their entire, motto was that we're taking over AEW? Is this something similar that the Don Callis family is going to be doing in AEW? Obviously right now they have 12 competitors right now in the Don Callis family. So, I mean, the Don Callis family right now, realistically, with the talent they have in that stable, is stacked. I mean, Fletcher, Takeshita, Okada, even Andrade alone, you're talking 4 significant names in pro wrestling. Now, am I against the Don Callis family? No. What I am against, though, is the fact that Andrade is with the Don Callis family. And just hear me out. I think with who Andrade is and what he's known, obviously he's been in a stable before with Roosh. I honestly thought they would have brought him back and reunited him with Roosh. It would have been Roosh. It would have been Andrade. It would have been Dralistico, and they would have had their own faction within the confines of AEW. That's not the case as of right now. And my worry with Andrade is how much are they really willing to use Andrade moving forward now that he's officially back with AEW, knowing that he's in the Don Callis family, when you got, with all due respect to the rest of the members of the Don Callis family, you got 3 other members of this team who basically are main event stars for AEW, being Okada, Takeshita, and Kyle Fletcher, on top of also having Andrade. So where are we putting Andrade into the main event scene? Now, me personally, I would have waited to bring back Andrade maybe until next week, when we got the announcement that Kenny Omega is going to be live on AEW Dynamite television next week, when he returns back to AEW. So I would have had Andrade once again return and beat the shit out of Kenny Omega, and we get a Kenny Omega versus Andrade. Now, Andrade has already wrestled for other companies before he came back to AEW. He's wrestled over he just recently wrestled over in New Japan. So I believe he wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom. So, and he had some interviews over in New Japan, what he wanted to do in AEW. He's made comments about MJF. He wants to work with MJF. He wants to be AEW World Champion. Kenny Omega has already made it pretty much well known that he wants to go after MJF in the AEW World title. This storyline could happen where we can have Andrade and Kenny Omega pretty much wrestle to be the new number 1 contender to MJF's AEW World Championship, if they do it correctly. Now, I don't know if they're going to run it back with Andrade and Kenny Omega, or they're just completely moving on from Kenny Omega due to the fact that Omega has his sights set on MJF in the AEW World title. But if I had to make another return for Andrade, I would have waited until we got Kenny Omega back next week and had Andrade show up and once again beat the hell out of Kenny Omega. That's how I would have represented Andrade back into the confines of AEW. With that being said, do I think AEW's episode last night was that bad? No. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that I think Dynamite episode last night was way better than whatever the hell we got from Monday Night Raw with the whole Stranger Things and Monday Night Raw or WWE collab. I thought Monday Night Raw this week was absolutely dog shit, to be honest with you. I don't know what the fuck they were doing. It was all over the place. I felt like it was lackluster, especially being basically the first Raw of the new year. It fell flat on its ass, man. I'm going to be honest. And for those people out there that are glazing WWE, you can't sit here and tell me that Monday Night Raw episode where they did that collab with Stranger Things was all that. I thought it was fucking horrible. Honestly, in the past, I would say roughly in the past 2 weeks, whether it be SmackDown or Raw, I think SmackDown's been doing better than Monday Night Raw. I think when they had their debut episode where they were doing 3 hours for the first time this year, I think SmackDown hit a grand slam. to be honest with you. And that's saying a lot considering that SmackDown's been on the same level as what we've been seeing with AEW, which hasn't been all that great. I think SmackDown did fantastic. I think with the call-ups, with the vignettes from Obafemi to Jordan Grace being on there, to seeing Trick Williams making his debut on SmackDown, seeing the return of Matt Cardona, and the matches that we got on SmackDown, especially the Damian Priest and Aleister Black ambulance match, what more can you ask for? You know what I mean? We got the 3 stages of hell. The matches announced for the 3 stages of hell match between McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. I think SmackDown the past 2 weeks, as far as pro wrestling, has been the number 1 pro wrestling show we've seen in the past 2 weeks, which is saying a whole hell of a lot. You know, obviously, you know, with AEW, you know, things are going to be kind of very interesting in the next few weeks. And what I mean by that is I know TNA is making their debut on AMC on I believe the 15th of January. It's going to shake shit up. It's definitely going to shake shit up. And honestly, I think at this point, you know, whether it be people want to call it a war back and forth between WWE and AEW, this might be something where it's AEW versus TNA, to be honest with you. And I told you guys, man, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, there's no way TNA can be the number 2 wrestling company in the country, overtaking AEW. I would pump your brakes on that. I'm not sitting here saying that AEW does not have the talent nor the money or the funding to, in a predominant network, to be the not the number 2 wrestling company in the States. I'm not saying that. But I'm not going to discredit what TNA is trying to do here. I'm not. I think anybody with a decent brain cell in their mind, you can't discredit what TNA is trying to do right now. TNA is trying to be back as the number 2 wrestling company in the country, or in the world for that matter. And they are on the precedent of trying to do that. I mean, securing this TV rights deal with AMC and making this debut on the 15th, I believe, for AMC, for TNA. This is a big-time deal. I mean, you guys got to remember, I mean, when TNA came into the fold, it wasn't like they had the best TV deals out there. I think when TNA first got involved in the whole pro wrestling space and actually had a cable network to actually showcase TNA television, it was actually Spike TV. And that's how far they go back. And then it went from, you know, Spike TV to then Access TV, which has been pretty much what it's been for a while now. So them being back on, you know, network television with AMC, I mean, it's going to be very telling to see how TNA plays out. And I think TNA, when they had their first debut episode on AMC, they're going to try to strike iron when the iron's hot, bro. I mean, there's so many people. I've even been approached and asked, do you think Chris Jericho might show up on TNA? I would be shocked. But you want to talk about getting eyeballs on your product? Yeah, Chris Jericho walking through the door would be crazy. Now, do I think they're going to do that? No. I think Jericho is most likely going to wait and debut on the main roster for WWE at this year's Royal Rumble when they're over in Saudi. So I don't see Jericho showing up in TNA. But if I was TNA and the powers that be that control the, you know, TNA, I would try to hit a grand slam coming out the gate, bro. Absolutely. You know, so again, this is going to put pressure on AEW. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that AEW doesn't have the talent or the resources to be the number 2 wrestling company in the country. No, they do. But I think the biggest stickler with AEW, and a lot of people have been saying this shit now for the past almost 3 years, is that AEW is lacking storyline and they're lacking creative. And that's the biggest downfall from AEW. And Tony Khan believes that what he's doing right now with not telling storylines or not having any kind of creative is actually working. I genuinely believe, and I am going to say this, and I've said this multiple times, Tony Khan is a person where I genuinely believe the guy is delusional. I really do. This is a guy who's a super fan of pro wrestling, which, okay, I get it. He's a super fan of pro wrestling. But Tony Khan and AEW, Tony Khan's booking this shit for himself, man. He doesn't give a rat's ass about what the fans think. And I think the mentality of Tony Khan, a lot of this shit changed once 2 people walked out of this company. That being Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. And once CM Punk left and all the shit happened with him and CM Punk, Tony Khan's mindset completely changed for AEW. They're no longer having fun anymore, man. They're just trying to do what they can to get by. Which is going to be very telling, bro, because like I said, maybe not now, or maybe not this year, could be next year. It's going to be very telling to see where AEW is going to land if this Netflix deal does happen to go through. Where are they going to stand? I know some people are like, oh, they're going to go to Discovery Global or some shit like that. And that maybe. But are they going to get the money and the resources that Tony Khan and AEW are looking for with another TV rights deal, possibly with Discovery Global? I don't think so. And to be honest with you, do I think they deserve that kind of money? No, I don't. And why? Is because the product that we've been getting for the past 2.5 years has been shit. Probably one of the best things that happened on Dynamite last night was seeing MJF. Because when he's there and he's present, you want to see what he has to say. You want to see what he's going to do. And my thing is, I don't know what's the future for AEW even this year, bro. Do I think they're going to be signing more talent? Yeah, I can see AEW signing more talent considering the fact that they let go 3 talents, if you will, from AEW here recently. Most notably, Matt Taven. He's gone. So they might be looking to maybe even sign or pull away some TNA talent to have them join AEW. So I think the war here is not between AEW and WWE anymore. I think it's going to be between AEW and TNA. And they're going to be fighting back and forth with talent on top of the main roster talent from WWE and vice versa. So it is going to be very telling. And I'm telling you right now, things are going to get crazy once TNA is showcased on AMC. Things are going to start slowly heating up and shit's going to change. Because if Tony Khan, he has to be feeling the heat or the pressure from TNA. He has to be. And people were like, oh, there's no way he's feeling any pressure from... Dude, bullshit. With the amount... don't get me wrong. AEW and Tony Khan has the resources. They have the money. But at the end of the day, TNA also has the talent. And they're also working with WWE. And WWE's got the talent, bro. I'm not sitting here saying they don't have the talent. So again, this could be something where it might it might burn a fire underneath Tony Khan where it's like, okay, well, I need to pick up the fucking pace and figure some shit out. And hopefully it does. Sometimes you got to burn the candle at both ends, bro. And you got to figure out what you're willing to do. How much are you willing to put in and actually make this company or this product being AEW more profitable and get more eyeballs on the product. It's going to take a whole hell of a lot more than bringing in a debut of Jake something and a second return, if you will, of Andrade. You're going to need a lot more than that. I have preached Karrion Kross coming in, Shayna Baszler. You got Katana Chance. Maybe she can team up with Kaden Carter, and maybe they can run roughshod on the women's tag team division. You're going to need names, bro, to actually get people talking about your product. And that's what they need to do. And don't get me wrong, I was happy when the Young Bucks came back with the old Superkick theme song and their old, wrestling gear. I thought it was great. I'm a big nostalgia guy, and I think if it's not broke, don't fix it. And clearly the ovation they got when that Superkick Party theme song hit, the fans erupted. The fans wanted to see the old Young Bucks, and now we're slowly starting to get that. And I don't know, maybe they're going to run it back with the Young Bucks and FTR for the AEW Tag Team Championships, if you will. But at the end of the day, there's still things that are hindering AEW, most notably injuries, bro. Adam Cole being out. Keith Lee being out. Jay White being out. Wardlow being out. We have one member of the Gun Club. They're out. You know what I mean? So, you have injuries that are also hurting this company and hindering AEW. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's one of those things where you have to figure out what are we going to do? You know what I mean? It's going to get to a point where some of these matches are going to be on repeat. No offense. With all due respect to Samoa Joe, I would be super thrilled if I never see Samoa Joe win the AEW World Championship again. I'm just done with it, bro. That title run was dog shit. His last title run wasn't all that great either. It just wasn't. It was a lot better than this title run, but it wasn't that much better. And I'm just done with the whole Samoa Joe experience, man. The experiment. It's just not working. It's just not. I think the ops shit ain't working either. I just think it's stale, bro. I think it's just run its course. It's getting old. And I'm just done with it. I really am done with it. I don't want to see Paige and Swerve versus Samoa Joe for a number one contendership for the AEW World title. I don't want Samoa Joe nowhere near that AEW World title. I just don't. We need some new names, some fresh faces to go after MJF and that AEW World Championship. That's what we need. Will Ospreay is also out, which is also hurting this company. Will Ospreay is a big-time deal for this company. He is a huge babyface for the company, and the fans love Will Ospreay. And with Ospreay being out and trying to, recover from neck surgery, it could be until All In by the time we see the likes of Will Ospreay walking through the confines of AEW and actually wrestling in an AEW ring. Until All In. That's a while from now, bro. So again, it's going to be very telling to see how things play out for AEW going into the new year. to be honest with you, knowing that TNA is literally, I would say, on the heels almost of AEW. TNA is not coming into AMC, and they're not fucking around. This ain't no bullshit, plan for TNA. No, TNA wants to lock in this TV rights deal, and they want to put on the best wrestling and storylines they possibly can to get fans gravitating more over to TNA. So yeah, I would confidently say that TNA is pretty much almost on the heels of what AEW and Tony Khan is doing right now. I'm not sitting here saying they got the talent, but it's another it's another competitor towards AEW for sure, whether people want to hear it or not. And the fact that they're working with NXT and the fact that they could be working with WWE's main roster, it's going to shake shit up for sure, And that working relationship between TNA and WWE is going to continue for the foreseeable future. So things are going to be very interesting for TNA in the next couple weeks. And we're going to see how this shit's going to play out. And the reason why I'm bringing up this TNA shit is because it could affect AEW, bro. It honestly could. The whole mindset with WWE and the entire thing of WWE, they're trying to put AEW out of business, bro. They're trying to put them out of business because they can't compete with the contracts that Tony Khan is putting out for his talent. They can't afford the money to fork out for these certain talents. They just can't do it. Tony Khan can pay, like Mercedes Moné, $2 million a year for her to be in AEW, and WWE can't do that. They can't. They can't afford $2 million, $3 million, $4 or $5 million a year. It's not going to happen. They have a budget. You know what I mean? They don't have the money of a Tony Khan. They just don't. And that's why they want him out of business, because they cannot compete with the contracts that he's willing to put out for his talent. That's the end-all, be-all. That's when it comes down to brass tacks, that's why they want to put AEW out of business. And to be honest with you, look, man, I know it's the first Dynamite of the new year, and things are going to take some time, but I do not want to see another year of AEW of what we got in the past 2 years. Because if it is, bro, I really don't know. I really don't know. They need to shake shit up, man. They need storylines. They need some more creative and some intriguing storylines, at least get the fans invested in AEW's product, man. It's the truth. And if they were to capitalize on telling story in AEW, AEW would be red hot again. Red hot. Absolutely. But Tony Khan just has this vision where I'm going to book this shit like it's All Japan Pro Wrestling. The best versus the best. Not for nothing, some of your best wrestlers right now are on the fucking shelf. Will Ospreay, Jay White, Keith Lee's out, Adam Cole's out. So some of your top talent, Bryan Danielson's pretty much retired. Some of your top talent is already either retired or on the shelf, bro. You can't book this shit like it's All Japan Pro Wrestling. You just can't. It's not going to work, and clearly it has not worked. Look at the metrics of AEW that we've seen in the past 2 fucking years. It's not working. We need storyline. And yeah, I told you guys, man, when it pertains to AEW Dynamite from here on out, yeah, if the show sucks, I'll tell you it sucks. If it's good, it's good. I didn't think last night was completely horrible. There were certain things that I enjoyed about the show. I think Jon Moxley versus Shelton Benjamin was a really good match. I think the 6-man tag team matchup and the return of the old Young Bucks was also a damn good match and a really cool moment. And then we saw MJF have that segment with Bandito, and that was pretty much it for me. The Lights Out match, I give a rat's ass about, bro. No offense to Swerve and Page. It's just, I'm done with the ops shit. I'm done with the ops. I'm done with Samoa Joe and all that bull. I'm done with it. I'm just done with it. Not for nothing, Samoa Joe could be one of those top talents in AEW that can go to Ring of Honor, and I give a shit less. I think he's a great wrestler. I think he's great on the mic, bro, but I don't want to see him AEW World Champion again, man. I just don't. I don't give a shit. I don't. I really don't. The whole ops experiment it doesn't work, bro. It just doesn't. I don't give a shit what Shibata does. I don't give a damn what Powerhouse Hobbs does, and I damn sure don't give a shit what Hook does. I just don't care. And Hook saying that he's one of the best second-generational wrestlers out there, bullshit. No offense, bro. It's so one-dimensional with you. All you do is an exploder suplex. That's all you do. You know what I mean? He is green as goddamn grass, bro. Seriously. Honestly. And from the promos that he cuts to the in-ring shit, Hook is not the best second-generational wrestler that's out there. That's a bunch of bullshit. Big fan of Taz growing up, yeah, but he ain't nowhere near close to what Taz did. Not even fucking close. So, again, it's just, I don't know, bro. Things need to change. Things need to change. And hopefully they change for the better, man, for AEW. If they want to acquire more talent to come into AEW, fine. You know, a lot of people, hell, there's been some people, even myself, that's still waiting for Dakota Kai to show up in AEW. And she was supposed to show up at the end of last year. Nope. Haven't seen the likes of Dakota Kai yet. And my thing is right now with the TBS title picture and the AEW women's title picture, really what's next for the likes of Statlander? If we're looking at the AEW Women's Championship side of things, what's really next for Stat? What, Tekla? That's it. Who else? Where's Sheeta? There's no Nyla Rose, no Sheeta. Rio comes and goes as she fucking pleases. You know what I mean? Like the women's division right now is up in arms right now, bro. Who's really next for Statlander? You're gonna run it back with Jamie Hayter? Britt Baker's on the shelf, seemingly done with AEW, so I don't see her ass coming back anytime soon. Who's next for Stat? And who's really next for fucking Willow Nightingale? We're gonna run it back with Mercedes Moné? Come on, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? You need some new life. Seriously. You need something to get the fans intrigued with your product. Bobby Lashley's also out with injury. That's another main event name that's out. That's why Shelton had the match with Jon Moxley last night, because there is no Hurt Syndicate right now. It's just Shelton. Bobby Lashley's out with injury. Again, another main event name that's also hurting AEW's product. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, the proof's in the pudding, folks. I don't know what else to say. Injuries are hurting this company. And the fact that Tony Khan doesn't know how to build up his younger stars, it's also going to hurt AEW in the long run. Kyle Fletcher is a main event star that can carry this company for the next 5 years. Takeshita, again, can carry this company for another 5 years. Those are two top names right there. Darby Allin can also carry this company for the next 5 years. For sure. But you have to utilize these talents now and start building them into future stars. That's what you have to do, bro. And there's other talents too. I mean, they're also working with CMML. Look, man, I praise Mascara Dorada. I think Dorada is great. I think Mystico in his own right is good. If you want to start working more with CMML and bringing some of those talents into AEW, maybe sign them to AEW, okay, I'm not against it. I think Dorada is great. I think Dorada is severely underrated. Mystico, underrated. You know what I mean? You got Hechicero as well, underrated. I think Hechicero is great, but again, he's with the Don Callis family. You know what I mean? You need to figure out what you need to do to get this company into the future. You need to figure out what to get this company back into the green again. And back into the good graces of the AEW fan base. You guys are barely selling out small theaters or smaller venues. When CM Punk was there, you were selling 12, 13,000 tickets, and now you're not even touching that shit now. If you're lucky to sell out a show that's got maybe 3,000, 4,000 fans, if you're lucky. And that's if you're lucky. So, I mean, it's saying a lot in the time span of when we had CM Punk and the likes of Cody Rhodes to what we have now. It's progressively gotten worse. So things obviously need to change for this company. And here we are now in 2026. Things need to fucking change. You know what I mean? And the thing, it's not like it's, to me, bro, it's like you're trying to get blood from a stone at this point. And all we're asking for as fans of AEW is we just want a little bit of fucking story to go with these matches, and go with these matches that take us to these pay-per-views that people are spending $50 a pop on. We just want a little bit of story, a little bit of intrigue. Why are we here? The where, the when, and the why. We're not getting that shit. We're getting these matches because Tony Khan says, you know what? I want to see these two guys wrestle. We're putting them on pay-per-view, and we're going to charge the fan base $50 a pop. With no story or no reason why. That's what it is, bro. That's exactly what it is. So for me as a fan and a content creator, when I watch AEW's product, I try to take out the things of the show that I actually enjoyed. Because you're not going to enjoy the entire show, bro. I don't give a damn who you are. You're not going to enjoy the show. And I don't want to be one of these content creators that do this shit constantly, and all they want to do is bitch and complain, bro. That's all they want to do. No matter what AEW does, the hell with them. They're trash. They're garbage. This, that, and the third. They're dog shit. I'm not going to sit here and do that, bro. That's borderline fucking insanity. I'm not going to fucking do that. If the show completely sucks, I'll tell y'all it completely sucks. But I'm not going to sit here and say the shit sucks when it's not. Or I'm not going to say it's good when it's not. There was things about the show last night that I actually enjoyed. I enjoyed the back and forth banter between MJF and Bandito. I enjoyed the Shelton Benjamin and Jon Moxley match. I also enjoyed seeing the old school Young Bucks and their tag team matchup that they had against Ricochet and the Demand. I thought it was a really good matchup. But that's about it. There's not really much more to really for me to be like, yeah, it was a really, really great show. No. You got to take what you can get out of it, man. But it's the same thing from Monday Night Raw this past week. I thought Raw was fucking horrible. I did. I know they collabed with Stranger Things and all this, and they debuted a new theme song for Monday Night Raw. Great. But as far as what we got on television from Monday Night, it fucking sucked. I didn't give a shit about anything on the show. We got Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky versus the Kabuki Warriors for the women's tag team titles, which pretty much kind of knew they were going to win the titles anyway. Okay. Great. Awesome. But it also takes Rhea Ripley and Io Sky out of the main event scene, especially us going into the Rumble, and especially us going into into WrestleMania. That's a problem, in my honest opinion. On two titles that literally are meaningless and don't mean a jack shit to WWE. Those tag team titles are fucking worthless. I'm sorry. Worthless. They mean jack shit, and I don't understand what the whole resurgence all of a sudden for these women's tag team titles are. It's a waste of fucking time. They don't even have a women's tag team division, bro. You're throwing together main event stars and teaming them together to pretty much put together a women's tag team division. Hence Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. Meanwhile, you got Jade Cargill walking around SmackDown like she's the top dog because she's the current women's Universal Champion. You need names, bro. You need bodies. You need someone like a Charlotte or Alexa to go up against Jade Cargill because she's wrestling nobody. What? B-Fab? Meechin? Come on, bro. Get the fuck out of here. It's a joke. It's an absolute fucking joke. And I'm not sitting here saying that the AEW women's tag team titles are any better. There is no AEW tag team women's division, bro. There's not. The Sisters of Sin with Tekla and Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Okay, great. Who else you got? Makeshift tag teams with Jamie Hayter and Queen Amanada. That's another makeshift tag team. Statlander and Willow. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have a women's tag team division to actually solidify the women's tag team titles. You just don't. It's a waste of fucking time. It's a waste of airspace. Why? It's meaningful. It doesn't mean shit. Honestly. It doesn't mean anything. It's the same thing with the AEW National Championship. What the hell is Ricochet doing with that shit? Nothing. The whole mantra around that title was that Ricochet, if he won the National Championship, he'll be defending it on the Indies or CMLL or this, that, the third, or New Japan. He hasn't done a goddamn thing with that national title. He ain't working on the fucking Indies. Come on, bro. And that was the same mantra or stickler with the fucking AEW International Championship. Same thing. Orange Cassidy, I remember he made comments about wanting to defend the title when they were over in Wembley the first time. Never happened. Never happened. So what is the point of the fucking titles? Nothing. Nothing. That's my whole point, bro. There's so many loopholes in this shit that, yeah, people are going to get pissed off because there's certain shit that doesn't make sense. And that's why I said I'm not going to be one of those content creators that are going to bash AEW every single time, bro, because I feel like it's borderline insanity. I'm going to take what I can get out of the show. If I enjoyed something, I'm going to say I enjoyed it. If I didn't, then I didn't. Because if not, bro, and you're going to just bash the product every single week, like I said, man, it's borderline insanity. You're saying the same shit over and over and over and over and over again, hoping for a different result. Like I said, man, it's borderline insanity. Either find something you like about the show or fuck off. Like, I don't know what to tell you, bro, but I mean, it gets to a point where you watch certain content creators and they're saying the same fucking thing over and over and over again, bro. Fucking move on. Have a cup of coffee and chill the hell out or something. Seriously. Like, take a Midol, bro, and piss off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, chill the fuck out. Seriously. It gets old after a while, bro. It really does. If you don't like the show and it's that bad, then move the fuck on. Move on. Or entertain the idea of watching another product such as TNA. Or NXT. You know what I mean? Something else, bro. You know, and I told you guys before, I used to, when I first did this podcast shit, my first ever episode, one of the first ones I ever did, was talking about NWA Power. The company that was currently run by Billy Corgan. And NWA Power was on YouTube at 6:05 every single Tuesday on YouTube. And I thought it was a decent product at first. I thought it was a cool thing to watch on YouTube. And I didn't think the product was that bad. You know, they were also working with Ring of Honor at the time, well before Tony Khan bought it. So they were working with Ring of Honor. They brought in Scott Steiner. They brought in, they had L.A. Knight, or Eli Drake at the time, Eddie Kingston. They had Ricky Starks, Zeke Dice. Nick Aldis was their World Heavyweight Champion. They had Camille, Tom Latimer. They had some solid names that were working with NWA. Tim Storm is another one. They had a decent roster in the first beginnings of NWA Power. But then we get to this bullshit called United Wrestling Network Primetime Live, which literally was the absolute drizzling shits. And I don't remember the guy who was running that. I really don't. I wish I did. Because whoever the hell that guy was that was running United Wrestling Network Primetime Live, get the hell out of pro wrestling, bro. And it's not for you. It's not. One of the worst, honestly, worst ideas of pro wrestling ever. And if he is a booker for pro wrestling, get the hell out. That shit was so fucking horrible that it almost closed the doors for NWA. That's how bad that shit was. It was fucking horrible. And after that, I couldn't watch NWA's product, and I haven't. And I don't even think they have United Wrestling Network Primetime Live anymore. But if they do, it was fucking horrible. And I wish I knew the guy that was booking that shit, because that guy needs to get the fuck out of pro wrestling. It was an embarrassment, an absolute embarrassment. And I believe the guy at one time was actually a commentator or one of those backstage interviewers for NWA. I forgot the guy's name, but I know he was like controlling United Wrestling Network Primetime Live. Get him out. Get him out. That shit was so fucking horrible. And honestly, for what it's worth, Billy Corgan and NWA, I'm going to say this too, they struck gold when they were on YouTube at 605. They struck gold. And I wish they would have kept that shit the same. I wish they would have kept the same mantra around what NWA Power was at the very beginning. Even the crazy and funny ass commercial and ads they would have during the show for NWA Power. It was awesome. It was hilarious, but it was also awesome. You know, NWA's product obviously has changed. I think now they're on the Roku channel, if I'm not mistaken now, so they're trying to figure their shit out. But yeah, I don't cover NWA anymore, because I didn't like the product. And I say the same thing about other content creators, bro. If you don't like the product and it's that bad, move the fuck on. And some people say, oh, that takes away money, bro. Then find something else, another company that you can invest time into, because clearly you're already making your money. Stop bitching, stop complaining. You're just doing it now just to piss people off. You know what I'm saying? Move the fuck on. Move on. Because it gets old, bro. Like I said, it's borderline insanity to hear people bitch, whine, and complain every single goddamn week about the same fucking thing. It gets old after a while, bro. You're trying to get blood from a fucking stone at this point. Like, stop. Shit's gotten old. Now, could AEW's Dynamite episode last night could have been better? Sure. Absolutely. But I'm not going to sit here and criticize the entire thing when there were certain things about the show that I actually enjoyed. You know, like I said, Moxley versus Shelton Benjamin, good match. The return of the old Young Bucks and their old school theme in the 6-man tag match they had with Perry taking on the Demand. I thought it was a damn good match. MJF and Bandito, the back and forth banter they had in the middle of the ring, I thought was also entertaining and good. I'm not going to sit here and bash the entire show, bro, just because people said so. No. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I look forward to next week. We got Maximum Carnage next week, and honestly, for what it's worth, it looks like a decent card, bro. You got MJF Bandito. You got some other matches starting to happen as well on that card as well. It looks like a solid card, man. And I'm excited for the MJF and Bandito match. I think Bandito's had a great 2025, bro. From being Ring of Honor World Champion to being AEW Tag Team Champions with Brody King, I think he's had a solid 2025, bro. And Bandito hopefully has another breakout year in 2026, man. Now, do I think he's going to beat MJF? No, I don't. But Bandito, again, is a top guy in AEW. In my opinion, he's one of the top guys in AEW. He's on the list, bro. You can't say that he's not. He's had a great 2025. And hopefully he has a better 2026, in my opinion. But again, man, AEW wasn't that bad. I think people that want to just bash a show, bro, are just bashing it just to bash it, just to get clicks, to be honest with you. I don't think the show was that bad. It could have been better, sure. But there were certain things about the show and aspects of the show that I actually did like. So, again, man, not a bad AEW Dynamite. I think, honestly, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that AEW's first episode of the new year definitely surpassed what Monday Night Raw did and their first event of the first year. I think Dynamite did way better than Monday Night Raw did. I thought Raw was absolutely garbage with their first Raw of the new year compared to AEW Dynamite. I think Dynamite was a lot better with their first episode of the new year than what Monday Night Raw was with their first Raw of the new year, hands down. But with that being said, though, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.